Hello everyone, welcome back to the React.js series. In this tutorial, we will learn about one of the advanced and easier topic which is React.js fragments. We will also cover the following subtopics which is why we should use React fragments. We will see a simple example, also we'll see an example with table, and finally we'll see how we can use a key attribute with fragment. So the first question is why should we use a React fragment? So in React we have a limitation like we cannot render multiple elements individually. We can render multiple elements but cannot render them individually. We have to wrap the elements inside any single or you can say parent element, and for that usually we use a div tag and then we render all of them as a group. All right, so sometimes in that results in unnecessary markups, so for that we use React fragments. So let's understand this with an example and see how this works. So let's create a component inside this component folder, and let me give it name fragment example, and simply create a functional component. So const fragments example, and I'm going to create a arrow function which will be in turns a component, and inside this let's use a simple return with h1. So this is an example of fragments, and finally export default fragment example. Now go back to app.js, and here simply import this. So import fragment example from fragment example, and inside this div let's use this fragment example. Save, go back to browser. See, this is an example of fragments, and if I inspect this and go to console, there is no error, no warning. All right, now what if I want to render two headings? If I simply type, you see, the moment I started a new element, it says JSX expressions must have one parent element. So it means we cannot render multiple elements individually. And let me complete this. This is a child node. Save. And if I go back to browser, see, we already have an error which is JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want a JSX fragment? See, it is clearly indicating like we have to use a single parent element. All right, go back to VS Code. Now to remove it, what we do? We simply use a div. So let's use a div and wrap both the headings inside this div. Save, go back to browser. See, it is rendering both the headings. And if I inspect this now, you notice both the headings are coming inside this div, and this div you can say this is an extra node which is acting as parent element. All right, now how we can remove this div? So basically here we can simply type, let me remove this div and use react dot fragment, and also replace the closing tag. Now save, go back to browser. Our headings are rendering perfect. Now if you notice this, both the headings are inside this div which is a part of our app component. You see, we have a div in app component, and inside this we have a fragment example component, and inside this we are rendering both the headings using React fragment. So we cannot see any extra node. So this is a simple example how you can remove your extra nodes using React.fragments. All right. Now let's see an example how we can use this fragment using table. So here, let's create a new component and I'm giving it name fragment calls.js and simply import React from React and const return dev export default fragment calls. And inside this dev, if I create td, which we generally use inside a table, so let's say name, let me use another td, let's say age, save. Now let's go back to our app.js and inside this, with this fragment example, let's take a br, a break line, and if I use a table and then tbody, a tr, and let's import this first. So import fragment calls from component fragment calls, save, go back to browser. So in the console, we have a warning and it says td cannot appear as a child of div. See, we have successfully rendered the HTML, but with a warning, td cannot appear as a child of div. So how we can remove it? So let's go back to our calls. So here, instead of this div, let's replace this with react.fragment. Also replace the closing tag, save, go back to browser, let's refresh. See, the warning has gone. So this is how you can simply use our fragment inside your table. Now let's use this React fragment with a key. So inside this app.js, let's create, or inside this example, simply create a array. So const, let's say people and not object. And inside this, so ID 1, name manojdeshwal. Let's copy this object and paste. And here Virat Kohli and ID is 2. And after this, simply use two break lines. And here in the curly braces, people dot map. Let's say PEO, the object, or let me take P as an object or the alias name, and then we can simply return react dot fragment, and we can also use key, and here we can use p dot id, close it, react dot fragment, and inside this fragment we can simply render our name. So p dot name, let's align it, save, go back to browser. As you can see, Manoj Deshwal, Virat Kohli. All right. So this is how we can pass our key property using React.fragments. All right. So another thing which is very important regarding this React.fragment, we have a shorthand syntax for this fragment. So if you don't want to use this React.fragments, we can simply use, let me comment this out, and also this, save. Let me remove it. Both. Save. Go back to browser. Everything is working as expected. So earlier it was react.fragment. Now it is only this open, close, and this one. All right. So this is about React fragments. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.